Welcome to Access Radio. It's another Wednesday. I'm your host, Amy Amantea. My pronouns are she, her. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Access Radio is broadcasting to you from the traditional and stolen territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Now, if you happen to be new to Access Radio, well, welcome to Access Radio. This is a broadcast platform where the content is created, it's requested, it's initiated, and it's governed by folks with lived experience of disability. This is super important as we honor the Disability Convention of Nothing About Us Without Us. I myself identify as legally blind, I'm neurodivergent, and I live with chronic pain and chronic illness. But I also feel really privileged to be the one who gets to chat with folks from the community and share the stories and the issues that are both relevant and important to the disability experience. I'm also a volunteer, as is Victor Schwartzman, who is our technical producer on this program. Well, and to be honest, just about everyone who works with Co-op Radio. Our stations are back open after the closure of the pandemic, but to be honest with you, we are finding that working from our homes during the magical power of Zoom means that we can still bring you high quality content through broadcast, while it also being accessible for both our hosts and our guests. So if you like what you're listening to in terms of its content, and I certainly know that you will, perhaps you might consider making a donation to the volunteer station. And if you would like to do that, you could do so at our website at www.coopradio.org. And I just want to thank folks and listeners for any contributions that they make and for all the contributions that have come in thus far. So thank you very much. We cannot do this programming without your support. All right, friends, I'm taking off the housekeeping hat and I'm putting on the hat of just being in a space with another human being. That means today I'm welcoming in GOLDbard to the space. Hello, GOLDbard.
Hello, thanks for having me here.
I'm really, really delighted to have you on the space because you and I had kind of an accidental, but maybe even serendipitous meeting. But before we get into that, maybe you can give us a little bit of context about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a queer neurodivergent creator living with complex PTSD, and I make art that centers my queer joy, and I am trying right now to live my most authentic, unmasked life.
Authentic and unmasked. I just let that marinate, folks, because it's such a rare thing to be able to do this in this world today.
It sure is. Yeah.
It's such a journey, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had the opportunity to listen to some of the music that you write and perform, and it's beautiful. And we'll play some of that today at something called the Freewheeling Festival that was put on by Real Wheels Theater earlier in May of this year. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to meet this person. And then we didn't get to meet that night. And then you and I randomly met at some arts forum like a week later.
Which just cracked me up. I thought that was so brilliant.
Are you that we had been emailing a couple times? We had someone put us in touch, and then all of a sudden there we were in the same space together. So I think the universe was sending us a message.
Absolutely. And, being at the Freewheeling Festival, for me, that was a really big deal that night because it was the first time that I was like openly identifying as being part of the disability community.
Oh.
And it's been a really long journey to get to that point of accepting and knowing my truth about that. I definitely went through a long period of, am I really, like a lot of imposter syndrome, weird stuff. Like, I don't know why, because who is like, you know what, I want to pretend.
You know what, I totally get this because I'm asking myself the same question about queer. And when is the right time? And what does that mean to me? And does it fit within, the open and closed brackets and, how, right? All of those things, because I also don't want to appropriate, but I also sort of know what my heart says, but I don't know what the world says. And so there's this thing where you're like, what line am I on? And at some point I'm just going to have to make a decision to be proud about who I am or to shove it down somewhere deep inside. I don't know. I don't know the answer for me yet. This is why I'm saying the living your unmasked self is complicated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I can remember like, so I finally got a PTSD diagnosis last January after living with this for my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after getting that diagnosis, I started to figure out that I was also autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this big wave of denial. I'm just like, okay, really? Like, don't you have enough boxes to check off already? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you do you have to have one extra way of being weird and different in this world? Like, don't you already have enough of those?
Isn't this like when you're in high school and you're like, okay, so I'm the chubby girl with the glasses, with the pimples, with the like, how many of these
Right?
things?
How many are we allowed to have of these?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's been a real process of coming into um, a, a version of myself that at times feels startling to me because it's a very different version of myself than I have been used to for most of my life.
right. This may be an unfair question, so if you don't want to answer it, just tell me to button it. But how has your family been supportive about this way of identifying for you, or are you finding, or even chosen family, are you finding people around are rallying for you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's been the great thing about this process. I mean, first of all, so my girlfriend figured out that she had ADHD in the same year that I was figuring out I was autistic.
Uh-huh.
And so that was hard as hell. And also at the same time, it's been really great as we have both been going on this journey of learning more and finally understanding uh, the answer to the question we've been asking about our brains all along is like, what the
Mm-hmm.
hell is wrong with my brain?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we finally have answers to it and are starting to figure out how to live in the world with this kind of brain. And so it's been really great to have her to walk this path alongside me and also just um, the world has been bringing in more other folks who are neurodivergent into my life. And the more I start to embrace this part of myself, the more I end up being connected with those people. And those are the people who are helping me figure out my shit.
You know, I feel I connected with folks a couple years ago, just actually at the beginning of the pandemic, just at the beginning, a group of dyslexic folks, which is my neurodivergence, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people. These are my people,
Mm,
and it changed the world for me because of something about my brain that I knew my whole life, obviously, and just that I was made to feel not smart. And why, and people are like, why don't you understand this? And it's just because my brain just doesn't process these things the same way as maybe a neurotypical brain does. What the heck is neurotypical,
mm.
anyways? But like it seemed to me that the average human was able to comprehend things that I just had to stew on and try and figure out, like putting puzzle pieces together. And I'm actually going to be
Yeah.
seeing my doctor this week about an ADHD diagnosis because I've learned that those two things often come together. They're often like
Hmm.
diagnoses together, and those things make sense to me in my brain. And even just trying to explain to one of my parents is like, yeah, I could see this, and the other parent like refuses to believe any of it. I was like, are
Mm.
you sure you're not just lazy? No, I'm not a lazy person. Like, I get a lot of shit done. I just don't want to run a vacuum around my house because I don't have capacity to do that. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Yeah, there could be several, but so there's I don't know. There's a lot of questioning in my life too. So I get this, and thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a lot. How do you feel you are on this journey of living your unmasked, authentic self? If you looked at it as a continuum, 1 to 100, like that binary, like the 1 to the 100, right? Where do you think you are?
I I feel like I have just kind of been through a process of being reborn and I am like a new baby deer on shaky legs.
Mm,
Yeah. Like it's so tender right now and uh just trying to figure out how to manage the overlap between the PTSD and the autism, uh, and trying to figure out how to um, ask for accommodations and support. And that's something that I'm still learning to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I am, I have experienced, thankfully, like I know some people have others in their lives who maybe like doubt them, and the people who are closest to me believe me about who I say I am, and I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember one of the things at the festival that you said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words, although I so wish that I did. Because the moment you said it, I was like, yes, human, yes, say it. But you got up on stage and you said something about like feeling like this was the first time that you were ever able to just like sit comfortably and do what you needed to do to perform, as opposed to being put in this box and told where to stand, or like that kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
performative thing about what looks good on a stage and what you have to do to be a performer, and you could just sit and do
Mm-hmm.
your thing. And that was a real first for you. And I remember hearing that and thinking, wow, thank gosh somebody's saying it out loud.
That was such an interesting experience for me because for a very long time, whenever I did gigs, I just kind of accepted the conditions that were handed to me.
Yeah.
And I would play any gig, regardless of how horrible the circumstances were. And I played in a lot of bars where there was a pool table right next to the stage, and there was
Mm-hmm.
always some drunk guy trying to climb up on stage with you. And um, just a lot of really challenging environments that I understand now were completely overstimulating for my autistic brain. And it would just shut down. Like sometimes I'd be halfway through a song and suddenly I couldn't figure out how to move my fingers anymore, or I would forget the words. And when I look back at those circumstances now, and I'm starting to understand, oh, I was in sensory overwhelm. Of course, that would shut my brain down. So learning to really protect the conditions under which I perform, and making sure that I bring all of my, like the things that I need now. I just bring my own stool. I bring a little pillow for my foot so that I have it at just the right height. Like I really take the time to adjust everything around me so that I'm comfortable. And it's been amazing to take that space for myself.
Right. And is that sort of been part and parcel with this idea? I mean, so the Freewheeling Festival is probably a bit unique in that Real Wheels Theater is a disability, it's an integrated theater company. So disability is a large part of what we do. I say we because I'm the board president of Real Wheels, and I've done a lot of work with Real Wheels in terms of performance work. So you're going into an environment already where people are like, yeah, whatever you need, this is cool. Instead of an environment people are like, what are you asking for? That's ridiculous. We can't do that. Uh,
Mm.
so have you been able to advocate for some of these things in gigs that you're doing sort of outside of the disability arts bubble?
I am. I just recently had an experience. I went to perform at this gig called Arts in the Garden in North Vancouver, and the space where we were set up, there was like I was performing underneath one of those pop-up tents, and soon discovered that where my tent was a bike pathway that
Mm,
mountain bikers frequently use. So I would be middle of a song and suddenly one of them would just whiz past me,
nice. Right? Yeah.
um, which was extremely startling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ended up getting some help to just move my tent over into a location where I didn't have to worry about whether a bicycle was going to ride straight past me in that moment.
Yeah.
So, so yes, I am learning in different environments, and also to I just pack everything now,
Yeah.
everything that I need. I bring my own PA, I have my own gear. For a long time, I was reliant on other people for that. And I didn't understand what a big difference it makes for me to be able to rehearse with my own setup and know exactly how everything goes and not have that uncertainty about what plugs into where in those moments.
Mm-hmm. It takes a lot to be on this journey, but I am happy, and it feels like you're in a place where, even though the legs are shaky, but a place where like a good starting place to move forward.
Mm.
Having supports around you is also like a really solid part of this journey. So it's nice to hear that you have supports around you. So I'm really grateful to hear that, because I am in this space and in other spaces with lots of humans who are newly identifying or have never had the ability within their life as a person with a disability to be able to really advocate for this, to feel like they have the autonomy to say, hey, wait a second, this is what I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a journey all on its own. If we talk about your musical work, because you're obviously a musician, I'm going to say you're a musician your entire life, because you sound like
Mm-hmm.
you've been a musician your entire life. Are you somebody who like went to school and learned this stuff, or is this like a pure raw natural talent?
I studied music in a lot of different environments. Um, I studied classical music when I was a teenager. I really wanted to study jazz, but I was living in Kamloops at the time. There were no jazz teachers, so I started out with classical,
Okay.
which is literally the opposite of jazz. And
Yep.
then I went to music college and tried to transition into jazz from classical, but that shift did not work well for me. And I ended up leaving music school just feeling really like broken and doubting my abilities to perform at all. It really was not a positive experience for me, music school. Um, and then later on my own, I spent 9 months studying Carnatic music, which is South Indian classical music. And that was actually one of my best ever experiences of learning music, because it came from such a different teaching style. And I was fascinated by the different scales and rhythms and how complex and interwoven they are. So I've studied a lot of different kinds of music over my life, and also, of course, just picked up stuff from being in bands. I did backup singing for a lot of different bands in addition to being a front person. So I've done a lot of different angles of music over the years.
Mm. So you've shared some files with us to play today, of your musical talent. So let's any way in which you want to introduce this first one. It's called Take Up Space.
Yeah, so this song is dedicated to all of the trans people in my life who have taught me so much about learning how to be the most true version of yourself, regardless of what the world thinks of you and what the world thinks you should be. And it's been one of the processes that I think is related both to coming out as queer and also coming out as neurodivergent, is just learning to accept that your way of doing things, your natural way of being in the world, that is something that you were taught to be ashamed of and to hide, is actually, it is the purest expression of you in this world when you can surrender to it and be willing to take up that space and not shrink yourself to fit in.
I love it. Yeah, a lot of, I mean, I can't speak as a trans person because I'm not one, but I can definitely speak to the internalized ableism that happens because of what the world tells you you should be living, and if you're not living that way, it's wrong and you're broken.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm.
it resonates when you say some of these things. So let's sit back and have a listen of Take Up Space.
I deserve to take up space. I deserve to make some noise. I deserve to play with toys. just like all the other boys. I deserve to take up space. I deserve to just be me. I deserve to have a home where I am held and free. I am ready. I am ready. I am ready now. I deserve to take up space. I deserve to wear these clothes. I deserve to love myself, to even love this big white nose. I deserve to take up space, even when you don't agree. I deserve to have a voice, to speak aloud what lives in me. I am ready. I am ready. I am ready now for transformation, for transformation, for transformation. We deserve to take up space. We deserve bodily autonomy. We deserve so much more than baseline safety. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready now for transformation, for transformation, for transformation. We are the transformation, transformation, transformation. Nation, we are the transformation, transformation, transformation. Nation, we are ready for transformation, for transformation. We are ready now.
It's a beautiful song, GOLDbard. Thank you for sharing this with us. What was maybe tell me a bit about your process of writing this piece, or writing in general, I suppose.
Yeah, some songs just kind of show up pretty fully formed, and other songs you kind of have to chase a little bit, and they sort of show up a little bit at a time. And this was one of those songs that kind of showed up all at once. And there's a particular moment in the song the line that says, "We deserve so much more than baseline safety."
Mm-hmm.
And that moment of that song felt so much. It tapped into this deep well of pain inside of me and inside of anybody else who's ever been told that what they have to offer, the thing that they give the world, their gift that they're giving the world, is ugly and is not wanted. And that's an experience that so many trans and non-binary people have, and it's an experience that we share with anybody else who's ever experienced any kind of oppression, because whether it's from a disability angle or it's about race or it's about sexuality, it's always a measurement of whose body is worthy to be in a space and whose
Right.
body is not.
Right. Yeah, that's heavy stuff, but important stuff. And I hope when people listen to this song that they find something that resonates with them, because I mean, certainly there's a scale of oppression, and some people, I would harbor a guess maybe that, I don't know, is there anybody in this world that hasn't felt some of it? But as you know, as the privilege peg goes down, you experience more and more and more of it. But I hope it's a song that everybody can find something in. And if they can't, then they have to go home and check their assumptions. Go check yourself, friend. Okay, so this is wonderful. And so the next song you have for us is called Want to Be, and I would love for you to introduce this one.
Yeah, so I am actually about to release a music video for this song that I've been working on for the last few months. And this song I actually wrote quite a long time ago, prior to coming out. And I like to talk when I'm introducing this song about how it contains all of my pent-up, frustrated sexual desire for a woman that I was falling for in this moment in time. But even more so than that, I think it's the pent-up desire for that person who I was when I was with her. And that person felt like, this feels like the real, true version of me. And in a lot of the rest of my life, I feel like I'm kind of just playing a role. And it's interesting to sing a song that you wrote over a decade ago now, and see how your relationship to it changes over time. And over time, this song has really come to mean more about this process of unmasking that I've been going through, and that when I say I want to be new again, what I'm saying is I want to be back to who I was at the beginning, before the world taught me all the ways that I was wrong.
Right. All right, I hope friends enjoy this one. This one's called Want to Be.
Dust of 1,000 days has settled on my soul, and no amount of soap can get me clean. 1,000 tiny deaths have stained my heart. My gentle eyes are clouded o'er by sights best left unseen. I want to be. I want to be new. Could you part the clouds from my tired eyes so I can see like a newborn child? Could you wash the dust from my weary lips so I can kiss you for the first time? Could you heal the wounding scars so I can love with an unbroken heart? Could you wash away the stain and make me new like the pouring rain? I want to be. I want to be. I want to be new. I want to be new like the sunrise, new like the pouring rain. Bathe me in your love and make me new again. I want to be new like the sunrise, new like the pouring rain. Bathe me in your love and make me new again. I want to be.
So, GOLDbard, you started to talk about when you introduced this song about your relationship to the song now. And I'm wondering if you can go a little deeper there if you want to about, the decade ago and now and how your relationship with this song has changed.
Yeah, well, when I first wrote this song, I remember the day so vividly, like I can still feel the wind and my feet were up on the dashboard and it was a hot summer day and we were driving up the Sunshine Coast. And now looking back at that moment in time, I realize I was struggling with this decision. Do I let this person out or do I stuff them back in again into the closet and pretend?
Right.
So releasing this song now, and I did just release that song on Spotify a few weeks ago, under my band name Sonic Joy. So releasing this song now on the other side of my coming out journey, which then became just the beginning of many layers of coming out. Understanding myself as a whole person in this world and reclaiming all of the parts of myself, especially my very young self, that uh, I had disowned along the way. And this process of moving towards wholeness and acceptance of all of my parts has been a lifelong journey, and there's been many teachers along the way. Sonia Renee Taylor has been huge for me. Reading Brene Brown's books.
Yeah.
Sark from the time of my 20s right on up, about learning how to live in the world as a neurodivergent person. I have had so many teachers along the way, and I'm so grateful for the time that we live in, that we have access to all of this wisdom.
Is it fair to say, I don't know, is it fair to say that this song is your origin story?
I feel like this song is definitely, if I were like a superhero, this would
Yeah.
fully be my origin story song. Yes.
All right, superhero space, we are now in. I see the cape. Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. I know that when you write your own work, it's deeply personal, and it can be hard to talk about. And sometimes I say to artists, especially artists in the disability community, when they write things. So we've had Jennifer Bergman on this show many times, who's a good friend of mine. She was at the Freewheeling Festival as well, on a different night, and she writes this beautiful prose, and one of it is a very deep hospital experience she had after her diagnosis. And you know, some people listen to it and they go, oh my gosh, you're writing about such tragic things, and other people listen to it and they hear the happy in it, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of shit that she went through, but this is the happy of it, that this is the point of the story, is to share that there was this one person in her life that treated her like a human being amongst all this shit, right? And so I asked her, and I often ask folks this question about, you know, how it is you can talk about things that are so deeply personal and not sort of reharm yourself. Like, if you get to that point where you're like, you know what, now it's a thing I can talk about, or whether you're just in some ways, maybe even re-traumatizing yourself when you talk about the work. Do you ever feel that way with your work?
You know, I think that is really where talking about somatic therapy is really important, because traditional talk therapy can often end up doing that with people who are traumatized. Is you end up just constantly re-traumatizing yourself by talking about the trauma. And it's been in the process of spending many years, first of all, learning about how the brain works. I did a certification as a trauma recovery coach, so I did a lot of learning about neuroscience, and I continue to educate myself about my own brain. So that's one aspect of how I keep diving in deeper to this, but I wouldn't be able to dive in deeper unless I had done the somatic work to help learn how to process trauma when it comes up in my body.
Right.
And that's something that actually music has been really central to. And I'm in the process of developing this methodology that involves using a lot of singing and movement to help process trauma, because I am finding for myself that the work that I want to do involves me being able to talk about it. So I have to be able to move the energy, right?
Right.
So the more I get into this work where I use music in this way, I'm having this beautiful thing happen where I am healing my own self while walking alongside with another person who's on their journey and needs some support in that way. And it's really fascinating to see where this is taking my music, and having come at music from a performer angle to start to think about it differently and more of a therapeutic healing modality, has really changed my relationship to music.
So we've got one more song that you've brought with you for us to play today. And this one is called When Love Wins. How would you like to introduce this one?
Well, I I have a pet peeve, and my pet peeve is that so often when people are writing works of fiction, and even people who write, say, sci-fi or fantasy, where you're creating an entire new world, they end up often replicating systems of harm that live in our current world. And I think, can't if you can imagine an entire new world, couldn't you imagine a world without misogyny?
Okay.
Couldn't you imagine a world without homophobia? What would that look like? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this song is for me. This is this imagining of like, what if love wins every time? What does that look like for us? What can we imagine what that would feel like to live in that world? You know, and I think that's really, especially at this particular point in history, I think that is really the job of the creators right now, is to help people imagine a world in which oppression is not baked into every system of government and every organization. What if we could live in a world without that? What can we just stop for a moment and just imagine what that would feel like?
Can I just do a bunch of like snaps right now? Woots and snaps. I don't think it could have been put any clearer than that, honestly. Your pet peeve should be the world's pet peeve. With that, I would love for folks to have a listen to When Love Wins.
When love wins, there is peace again, and room enough for all to show up in their glory. When love wins, children laugh with glee. We share songs of joy and hope for the future. When love wins, the best of all humanity shows us how we want to be, simple and free. When love wins, when love wins, we don't have to choose between acceptance and belonging. We just get to be. When love wins, we are limitless, unbound from heavy chains that try to drag us down. When love wins, the best of all humanity shows us how we want to be, simple and free. When love wins, some days the hate screams so loud, it's hard to find solid ground. That's when it's hard to remember. When love wins, we don't have to choose between acceptance and belonging. We just get to be. When love wins, we are limitless, unbound from heavy chains that try to drag us down. When love wins, the best of all humanity shows us how we want to be, simple and free. When love
GOLDbard, you've shared with us some really beautiful music, and possibly maybe I should ask you about the Want to Be music video that you're working on. Any thoughts? Can you
Yes.
share that, or is that like a total secret?
No, you know what? I will be putting it up on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you want to follow me on Instagrams, that's where I post everything. I will let you know when that's up, and you can follow me at GOLDbard Creative to see that music video coming out soon.
Okay, and GOLDbard is GOLDbard for folks who are wondering how that's spelled. Creative, I think the traditional way. On Instagram, is there any other way that folks can connect with you?
That is my main platform right now. I do not currently have a website. I have created websites for myself in the past, and they took a lot of my time and energy. So I've been putting that off. I might make one later this year, but we'll see.
I don't have a website either because their total time sucks.
That is my problem with them. Yes. And as people with limited spoons, you got to be careful where you allocate them.
Yeah. Yeah, the lack of spoons things is a reality in my life, and I have to learn how to better manage them because they're finite and my spoons are rusty. That's all I can say. My spoons are starting to rust.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really great. And I mean, when you introduced yourself, you called yourself a creative. And I'm wondering if there are any other things that you do other than music, songwriting, music, that are part of your creative expression.
Yes, I paint and I do digital art. I'm just working on a collection of paintings that hopefully will be going up in Vancouver this summer. And I've been working on a collection of stickers, which I'm planning to release later this year.
Wow, stickers.
Well, you know, as somebody who grew up in the 80s, I have a deep, deep love of stickers.
I do too. Okay, favorite kind of sticker, go.
Oh my God, too many to choose. Okay, like the puffy ones, the smelly ones.
The oily ones? Do you remember the oily ones?
And then the ones that shimmer and change the image depending on what angle they're at.
Yeah, we called those ziggies. We called those ziggies. I
Ziggies.
don't know why, but we called them ziggies. Yeah. Because they had kind of a texture, and when you rub your fingernail over it, it made a kind of a texture mark, like a little noise.
Right. Yes.
For the fuzzies.
Yes. Oh,
Those
yeah.
little fuzzies. Oh, I still have my sticker album from the 80s.
Amazing.
I
I don't know what ended up happening to mine.
I know, it's pretty amazing. You'll appreciate this story. I think that one day I was being a bad girl and I picked on my brother, and my mother got really mad and she ripped apart my sticker book. She ripped it apart, and I was devastated. And then she was devastated because she was like, what the hell have I just done? So then she took me to the sticker store and we got a new book, like a whole bunch of new stickers. And then I just pulled the other stickers off of those pages and put them in the new book, right? So it was like kind of like a win for me. Yeah. Every week we were going to this sticker store and I could get new stickers. And then there was this thing about whether you put them on the outside of the page or whether you open up the page, put them on the inside where the sticky is and close the clear page over top. And it was always a question for me, which one would they peel off easier if I wanted to trade them? Oh my goodness, I could talk about stickers for hours. So
there's something so pure and joyful about stickers, right?
Right? So you're gonna design stickers. Have you got a theme in mind, or just like are you gonna draw out the shapes? Like I'm so curious about this.
Yes, so I have a few different lines that I've been working on. I've been doing these portraits, queero portraits and portraits of queer joy. One of my real hyper fixations right now is learning more about queer creators throughout history. So I've been creating stickers with quotes from some of the famous queer creators, from Audre Lorde to Jackie Shane to Radcliffe Hall, and I would love to do more of those. I also have some stickers that are more like text-based. And one of my favorite ones about that is this is a queer space. And I have this vision of seeing those stickers all around Vancouver, and that would make my little heart just so happy, because there's so much of our queer history has been erased, and I'm kind of obsessed right now with creating work around resurfacing those queer histories so that we get to have a sense of connection to a lineage of queer creators throughout time.
That sounds pretty damn fantastic to me, my friend. That's all I can say about that. And that you'll have to email me when stickers come in, because I'm not on Instagram. It's not super accessible. But I am definitely going to buy stickers, and I'm definitely going to mail them to friends, because I have this thing. Okay, even though I know it's bad for the planet, I know it is. I know it is. But how nice is it to just receive something nice in the mail from a friend?
It really is so special, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be kind to the planet in other ways so that I can use a postage stamp and send something like stickers, or a beaded keychain that I've made, or something to a friend that I just know needs to open something in their mailbox right now.
Oh, I
That's
love
the kind of
that.
friend that I am. So
We need more friends like you,
need more
Amy.
friends like me. That's right. That's right. If I could hand deliver it to people's houses, maybe I'd do that. But some folks are far away. But I know a lot of folks who would love to get some stickers. So I will definitely do
Yes.
more. That's so cool. And painting. What kind of painting?
So I am a mixed media artist. So I use mainly acrylic paint, and then I do some collage elements. I am really interested in neon colors right now, so most of my stuff is very vibrant. And the series that I'm working on right now is called Minds and Mushrooms.
Love it.
I'm really fascinated by the mycelium network, and just how much those networks, those underground networks that connect forests, look exactly like the connections inside of our brains, and how the mycelium operate in this beautiful example of perfect balance where nothing is wasted. And the way the mycelium network just transports nutrients from one area of the forest to another area of the forest that needs it, and the communication pathways that make that possible. Yeah. And since I have spent the last, I don't know, I think I started in 2014, I started really unearthing the ways in which my brain was different from other people's brains, which previous to that, my story was just my brain is broken and I'm just hopelessly flawed, and this is something I will never be able to fix. To now being able to understand more concepts of neuroplasticity, and that even though my brain is different than other people's brain, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay the same, that we all have this opportunity still to be able to grow new neural pathways. And that really represents hope to me for my future personally, and for our future as a people on this planet. If we can start to love and embrace all of our own weirdness and oddities, then we have so much more to offer in terms of building connections and creating new worlds, when we are not actively suppressing our own selves and our own most basic instincts.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Mary Oliver's poem Wild Geese a lot. And she says, you do not have to be good. You do not have to crawl on your knees through the desert for 100 miles repenting. You just have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
Yeah.
And that level of acceptance of my own body in terms of all of its joys and all of its so-called flaws, learning to love and accept all of those parts of myself, even the parts that I'm convinced make me completely unlovable, is I think what I'm here to talk about. Because if somebody like me who uh, experienced some really horrific things very early on in their lives and learned that the world was not a safe place for myself, uh, can still find a way to work within this very differently abled brain
Mm-hmm.
and find joy in this world. And I think that that is really where we find our hope to continue fighting the good fight and creating a world that is kinder to the next generation, hopefully.
A world that is kinder to the next generation. I really want to marinate on that.
Hmm.
How important that so is. if we can take the things that we've been through and the things that we've learned and, I don't know, blaze that trail for a generation so they don't have to go through as many of those things.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a gift in and of itself. I don't know if we ever get there. I mean, I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I land right in the middle at realist. So I don't know exactly how how realistic all of that is, but we can dream about it. We can dream about it and we can work towards. I think about this like with the concept of universal access, which everybody wants to talk about, and I go, it's great. Let's strive for that, but it actually doesn't really exist because there are so many different conflicting access needs. You're always going to forget about somebody, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try for it, right? It's just that you're gonna get to where you think the end is and go, oh, we didn't think about that. Oh, you mean that actually doesn't work for you? Oh, so it's a constant reminder to me that we strive for, the best case scenario, the most utopian of worlds, and then somehow realistically we know that it doesn't quite work in practice, but that doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile journey. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of how my brain's working these days.
And I think I'm more interested in just, are we asking what poet David White refers to as the beautiful questions?
Yeah.
It's not about finding answers, thinking there's some perfect solution. There is never a perfect solution.
Yeah.
But are we actively engaged in asking ourselves the beautiful questions? That is where, to me, the juicy stuff of life is.
Yes. I don't know that you could have left us on a better note, GOLDbard. That is perfection, my friend. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your artistry in this space. Shout out where folks can find you once more.
GOLDbard Creative on Instagram.
GOLDbard Creative on Instagram. So friends, go check out GOLDbard's music and check out for the drop of the music video and the sticker lineup and all those fun things. So thank you, my friend, so much for joining us on Access Radio.
Thanks for having me.
For our listeners, tune again next Wednesday for another episode of Access Radio.